The Santa Claus. You know this movie is really quite creepy, right? It's all because of that line at the end where Charlie says,
I think I'm going to go into the family business.
I mean, the only way he's gonna take that job is to kill his own father in some fashion. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for The Santa Claus. I love Christmas, and I cannot believe it's already Christmas again. Christmas is already upon us. It seems like yesterday was last Christmas, and each year just goes by faster and faster. Anyway, since Christmas is one of my absolute favorite holidays, I thought I'd dive into one of my favorite Christmas movies, The Santa Claus. This was one of my favorite Christmas movies when I was a kid. And yeah, when I was a kid, I did notice Charlie's creepy little line there that he wants to go into the family business, and I did realize what that meant. You know, I think the actor's about that age now. Maybe it's time to make that movie.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
Until then, let's dive into this one.
Hope the guy that lives here is a tailor. How do I look? Nice.
Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. That verse is saying two things. There is a new nature, a new identity for us to put on, like putting on new clothes or putting on a new suit. There is a new nature for us to put on. And in putting on that new nature, we now have access to this relationship with God, and there's a process. So there's put on the new nature, then there's the process of getting to know God in order to become more like Him. And I feel like this movie is such a creative illustration of that process, because Christmas is about that time of believing. It is about that time of the greatest light coming into our dark world and our celebration of that. It's about celebrating that transformation that Jesus brought us, that new nature that He brought us. See, He was born so that we can have an exchange. He took our nature, and now He gives us His nature, and we could put on His nature, and we could step out into the world the way He stepped out into the world. So you have Scott Calvin, and he's got this old nature, this old identity, and he makes toys. I mean, already he's kind of like Santa Claus, except he doesn't make toys to make kids happy. He makes toys to make profit. Like, he forgot about the real reason you make toys to begin with. So he's got his priorities totally out of whack. So out of whack that it's Christmas Eve and he's hours late to being with his own son, whom he truly loves.
You wouldn't believe the traffic out here. Yeah, same to you. And that's not very ladylike.
And you see it. You see it this Christmas Eve when he's hanging out with Charlie. He's talking to Charlie. He really wants to be able to relate to his son. He really, really does. But he's having a hard time. Charlie doesn't want to be there.
Do I gotta stay?
He wants to be able to talk to Charlie, but he doesn't know how. And so he burns the turkey, takes him to Denny's, and then finally he's like happy when Charlie finally falls asleep, because it's like, what do I even do? So he's struggling to relate to his son. But then something happens. A new identity is offered to him.
Hey, you!
What's that?
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
You got him!
Well, sort of offered to him. It's not the most perfect parable here, but he startles Santa Claus up on the roof, and when Santa Claus dies, a new identity is now opened up to him. Kind of like how Jesus, not being startled and falling off a roof, but intentionally died for us, offers us a brand new nature at that exchange, taking our nature and dying with our weaknesses and paying that price, and then rising from the dead in a brand new nature and offering us that identity and offering us that nature. So now Scott Calvin has a new identity waiting for him. So he puts on the suit.
And putting on the suit and entering the sleigh, the wearer waives any and all rights to any previous identity, real or implied, and fully accepts the duties and responsibilities of Santa Claus.
And the moment he puts on the suit, he has access to things he never had access to before. He has access to Santa's sleigh. He has access to the supernatural ability to deliver presents all over the world in a single night. He has access to the North Pole. He never had that access before. The moment he put on that brand new identity, a whole new world was opened up to him immediately. However, there was still a process of change that occurred in his life between that first Christmas.
How come your clothes are so baggy?
Because Santa is watching his saturated fats.
in that next Christmas.
Your father this year.
Thank you very much. You've grown too.
It wasn't overnight. And I think so many times we struggle with the idea of walking by faith and not by sight because we have certain expectations of God. Like we create this little box and we try to shove God in there even though he's way too big for that, and we try to make him work how we think he should work. He should work by our formulas. A plus B equals C, God. That's how you have to work, and I'm shoving you in this box. That's how you have to do it. Neil, Charlie's stepdad, doesn't believe in Santa because he believed he wanted a weenie whistle for Christmas.
I was 3, and it was an Oscar Mayer weenie whistle.
And his belief system was Santa had to give him that weenie whistle.
Christmas came, no weenie whistle. And that's when I stopped believing.
Therefore, because of a weenie whistle, there is no Santa Claus. Charlie's mother, the same thing. She wanted a dating game. She wrote him so much that year for that dating game. And for Christmas, she got she even says it. I got everything I wanted.
I got everything. Except mystery date.
So because I didn't get that one game and I got everything else I wanted, but I didn't get the one thing that I wanted, so now I don't believe in Santa Claus anymore. It's amazing how that disappointment, walking by sight and seeing that disappointment, can lead to us dropping our faith. Really the theme of this movie, and Judy says it at the very beginning.
Seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing.
Scott Calvin had a supernatural night that one Christmas Eve, and he's in the North Pole talking to an elf, explaining to her how he doesn't even believe he's in the North Pole talking to an elf. So he's seeing this and experiencing it and doesn't even believe. He's trying to logic it away himself. He was fighting for Charlie's belief system, and yet he is so bound up, he can't even believe what he's seeing and experiencing. And he's got to say, it's a dream. That's all that this is. It's just a dream. And Judy makes the point that kids all over the world who haven't seen what he's seen or experienced what he's experienced still believe. So believing is seeing. It's not the other way around. In other words, we really could see the miraculous in our lives, but because we put God in this box and say it has to be this way or no way, here's a miracle sitting right there, and we can see it if we want to, but in our belief system, we've chosen to believe that's not the miracle. The real miracle would have been if it happened the way I wanted it to happen. Now, as this movie unfolds, Scott has this new identity, but there's a wrestle between the old and the new identity all the time. As this movie goes on, he struggles with believing that he's Santa. In fact, he doesn't even believe it, even though suddenly he's got a beard and his hair is white.
I'm in big trouble.
You know, suddenly he's super fat and his heart sings Jingle Bells. But he's like struggling with this belief, and yet his nature is changing because he put on a new identity. And so slowly but surely, over time, in a process, he's changing. And it's interesting when he's sitting in a pitch meeting for this like total tank Santa and how much he freaks out. But what interested me about what he freaked out over was the purpose of the toy.
It's got 10,000 parts. And even if you do get it together, it breaks 10 minutes later. Then you got to spend more money just to buy new parts.
Well, I thought that was the whole point.
No.
And he's like, wow, what even came over me? I don't know what came over me in that meeting. It's because he had put on a new identity. And slowly but surely, that identity is working on him, and it's changing him. I mean, we feel like the moment we put on that new nature, it should be like a drive-through Christianity. All of our problems solved right here and right now. But even Scott Calvin, the moment he put on the identity of Santa Claus, instantaneously, he had a new identity. And he had access to a world he never had access to before, and he had access to a supernatural power that he never had access to before. All of that was there for him immediately. And yet, it took him throughout this movie, the course of a year, to grow and mature into that role of Santa Claus, to grow and mature into who that character really is. And it's the same thing in our relationship with God. He gave us a brand new nature. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. Getting to know our Creator, it is a process. And what's so hard about that process is we so sometimes have a drive-through expectation that if we're not changed overnight and this habit is not broken overnight, well then God must not exist. Or we sit there and think, I am totally broken and I should be so full of shame because I can't seem to get this because everybody else is getting healed, everybody else is getting this new thing, but I'm still stuck in this. And I mean, it's amazing how unmet expectations could take us in those directions of unbelief. But the truth is, God is bigger than those boxes. So when we let Jesus in our lives, instantly we have a new identity. God doesn't see us as dirty, filthy sinners. He sees us like He sees Jesus, which means we can now come to God confidently and not be afraid. And it means that, yeah, we might still struggle. Because you know what? We live in this world. We still have an old nature to contend with. But it doesn't change that inside we've become something new. It doesn't change that we've put on a brand new identity. It does mean that over time, we are going to grow more and more and mature more and more into that identity. So when you watch the Santa Claus, what did you think of this movie? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next theological analysis, movie review, trailer reaction, or anything else I do here. Merry Christmas. Have a happy new year. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.